Welcome to today's DCIM webinar. My name is James Serwinski. I'm the Director of Raritan's DCIM software business. I'm delighted that you've joined us today as we explore DCIM's role in the modern data center. We'll be hearing from a number of experts on how to get the most value from DCIM. It is my real pleasure to introduce our panelists. Joining us today are two Raritan DCIM customers. We have Keith Bott from British Airways. Keith is the service manager for equipment and facilities for British Airways, the largest airline carrier in the United Kingdom. Keith and his team manage British Airways' two main data centers, totaling 65,000 square feet. The data centers, which are located at London Heathrow Airport, support British Airways' daily operations, from reservations to airline routes to support organizations. We also have Micah Petty from Comcast. Micah is the director of Comcast's Edge and Platform Services Regional Data Center team. Comcast is one of the largest global media and technology companies. Micah leads a talented group of engineers responsible for delivering data center space to support Comcast's voice, video, and data services. Micah's team covers the entire data center lifecycle, from design through construction and commissioning to technology deployment to operational oversight, which includes maintenance, capacity planning, and reporting. Leading the panel discussion is Jennifer Copy from IDC. Jennifer has been researching and writing about data center infrastructure management since the earliest days of DCIM. She is considered one of the industry's top authorities on DCIM. Those are our panelists. We also want to hear from you, so please ask questions. There's an area at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions. So let's get started. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, James. This is Jennifer Copy from IDC, and as James mentioned, I have spent quite a bit of time looking at DCIM, the issues involved in implementing the benefits that customers want to get from this. And I've been with IDC for almost 20 years and been focused on this space for the past couple of years. And so it's really an area that I'm quite passionate about, and I'm excited today to be able to bring you not just what the research says, but actually what real customers' experiences are with DCIM. And so, first of all, just to kind of set the stage for this, why is it so important? Mainly, are data centers today up to the task? Recent IDC research showed that 84% of organizations experience issues with data center power, space, and cooling capacity, with IT asset deployments and uptime. These problems result in delayed application rollouts, reduced ability to support customers, and unplanned reallocation of OpEx and CapEx budgets away from strategic goals that really help the company grow. And data centers today are really the new factory floor and the first point of contact with customers in this information-driven economy. Data centers play a key role in enabling enterprises to provide service to customers and deliver innovation. But unfortunately, inconsistent information about IT and facilities is undermining a data center manager's ability to deliver the service required. So IDC believes that an important strategy is to reduce data center risk is to unify the management of all aspects of the data center, including the critical facilities, the IT, and networking assets. And a well-implemented data center infrastructure management solution can help IT and facilities teams coordinate management tasks by providing a common view of the truth. This visibility can increase data center operating efficiency in power and cooling, as well as IT asset utilization. It makes it easier for data center teams to better tie physical systems to virtual machines, applications, and business services. And the bottom line is that really a well-implemented DCIM solution can help data center teams better leverage existing capacity, avoid costly build-outs, and optimize IT workloads. So where are we today? So here's another results from a survey that IDC did a little less than a year ago, where we asked 410 data center managers what problems they had experienced in the past year. And the data that we found was surprising, especially in the amount of downtime related to human errors. In large data centers, it came up at about 70% of respondents had problems related to human error that resulted in downtime. And if you think about it, we focus a lot on making our data centers resilient to the forces that are out of our control, such as hurricanes and floods that result in power outages. But it looks like from this data that the energies that we spent on these issues would be better off serviced on issues that we can control, such as downtime to human error. And one of the key things about data center infrastructure management is that it can address these critical pain points and really squarely help the issues, many of them that we're looking at today, running out of IP addresses, to a certain extent downtime due to system failure, regulatory and compliance issues with audits. A lot of these things can be addressed by a great infrastructure management solution. And what we'd like to do next is ask you, the audience, what problems, what benefits do you hope to gain with DCIM? A little bit of a typo here. I think what problems do you hope to resolve with DCIM? And if you could enter your responses at this point in time. We're doing a live polling, and so we'll show the results in just a moment. Whether it's reducing time to deploy business critical services, improve the accuracy of your asset information. And this is the results as they're coming in. And we will wait a little bit more to get everyone's participation here. And we are almost there. Oh, look at it. Boy, I wish all IDC surveys had a 99% response rate. That would be perfect. So if we look at these, okay, I think I actually, when I click next here, here's the final results with, that's great. Thank you everyone very much for your responses. So the top response or pain point that people want to solve is improving asset and power capacity management with 68% of respondents. Improving the accuracy of asset information, being more efficient. So these are really the top benefits of DCIM. And this actually, it's interesting because this information is pretty similar to what we see from overall surveys. So what we're going to do today is, kind of give you some real advice on how you can solve these problems using DCIM. And as we look at, data center issues, I really want to confirm, that the data center managers on the call today understand how important your role is. Data center issues are not data center problems. They're not IT problems. They're really business problems. Because downtime, just put very simply, this slide's very basic, but downtime equals unhappy customers. As I mentioned before, data centers are really the first point of contact with, with customers. And if you are not available, you're going to have unhappy customers, and that directly leads to lost revenue. And so I want to confirm that the investments that you make in DCIM are not just for your data center. They're for your company overall. And I think that as you go through and get approvals and you gather an army of people that are on your side as going through this DCIM journey, that's really what you need to emphasize, that data center issues are business issues. And we go next talking a little bit about the benefits of DCIM. Beyond the workflow support for asset lifecycle management, DCIM has a number of operational and strategic benefits that impact the company as a whole. And probably the most important of these is the ability to plan for future capacity needs. With DCIM, IT organizations have insight into their growth. And they may find that they don't need to build a new data center, or at least they don't need to build one immediately. The real-time visibility and control is increasingly important as data centers become hybrid resources. more geographically distributed. And visibility is a key feature of managing a dynamic resource such as a data center. In our survey work, the ability to link IT spend with business value always ranks very high as a reason to adopt DCIM. And in the wake of a recession, we're still in an economic climate that requires rigorous cost justification, and DCIM can really help with this. An emerging trend is to parse out IT expenses by internal group, and DCIM can enable chargebacks if a company is ready for that. Most are looking for viewbacks right now. That can also be enabled. We had a quick audience question, and this is a great question. What do we mean by hybrid resources? So, what we mean by that is as data centers are moving closer to end customers, they're really becoming a mix of company-owned on-premise, co-located resources and cloud resources. So when a data center manager, is managing, they're really managing things that are, directly within fingertips reach as well as, perhaps geographically distributed. And so the resources are, the combination of different sites out of necessity to deliver fast and reliable IT service. And the ability to manage these hybrid resources will really become what makes a good data center manager versus an outstanding manager in the next several years. And going down, the ability to deliver IT services more quickly in an area of line of business managers who are increasingly making more and more decisions directly about IT. They're armed with a credit card, logging on to AWS or another cloud site, and their expectations are very high for IT. There's a never-ending quest for faster service, better service, cheaper service. And this is really challenging IT organizations to roll out service quickly, like in a day or hours versus, 6 months. And DCIM truly enables a company to deliver these services more quickly. And the DCIM journey, this all, sounds great. There's a lot of benefits to it. But in my discussions with customers, it's not always easy. A survey that we did last year showed that 53% of organizations that currently had a DCIM solution installed were actually considering moving to another solution in the next few months. And when I talk to customers, it's not always a positive story of success. There really are some key attributes of planning and implementation that separate those who realize value from DCIM and those who don't end up recognizing the value and getting that return on investment. And for this reason, we've brought to you today 2 real-life examples, some people to share the DCIM journey with you. And our goal is, in this session, we can help you as a data center manager deliver exceptional service to your customers. And so we have Keith and Micah today to talk to you, and I'm going to actually go to Keith first. And now Keith is from British Airways. Obviously there's a lot of critical things on the line, when it comes to managing in the transportation industry. Keith, can you tell us a little bit about, how did you know you needed a DCIM solution? And can you identify a tipping point in your organization when you realized you needed more to manage than you already had in place currently?
Well, for many years you've had a sort of an early DCIM solution, which is an old application which became unsupported. And then about 3 to 4 years ago, we realised we need to get something that's a bit more modern. And we then did a study and came up with your DCIM solution, really to manage the assets and the connectivity of those assets and how they link together. And the tipping point is just the quantity, really.
Great. So can you help us a little bit, talk about what are the key criteria that you looked for in a DCIM solution?
But it was principally about, for us, it was principally about asset management and connectivity. But the way we go about choosing a solution is we have a number of questions of what we want the solution to do. So it was about 100 different things in functionality that we needed to be able to do, and they were sort of rated how important they were, whether they were must-haves or nice-to-haves or etc. And then you come up with a score at the bottom, and against each potential supplier, and it's not the highest mark wins, but it gives you an indication of how you go about selecting the right solution for yourself.
Okay. Now, can you share with us, for British Airways in particular, what were the must-haves on your list versus the nice-to-haves, and how did you come up with
the
that?
must-haves for us were really about asset management. So it's the accuracy of the data of what you've got and where it is and what it connects to and what it does. This is probably the most important thing. And then the layout of it, how it goes into your data center, so where it's located, and pictorials as well, about not just the information but being able to look at it pictorially.
Okay, great. And can you share with us, so, it sounds like, and in our conversation, prior to this call, you talked a lot about your focus on asset management. But there's a lot of other, and good asset management clearly will, help in a number of different ways in managing the data center entirely. But can you characterize for us beyond that, where you are now in your DCIM implementation, and then maybe looking out into the next 12 to 18 months? Where would you like to be, in the next 12 to 18 months? And what would you like to accomplish?
Where we are right now is we have the data center information, so the hardware, so all the servers and all the patch panels, and all the different devices in the data center. We have all the power information in there as well. We have connectivity to a storage area network, but we don't have connectivity to the IP network. So where we are at the moment is we've got all the physical stuff into DC Track. We've got all the SAN connectivity to get to your storage if it's external storage. What we haven't got is, as I said before, we haven't got the IP network. What we want to do is get that IP information into DC Track. It sits in another database at the moment, and then cross-fertilise between the people who put that information in on the network with DC Track, so that we'll be giving them information on what the hardware is, and vice versa for the network. And we also we're going to be a trusted source of data into our problem management and change management solutions. And that's where we're going towards. DC Track will be a trusted source of data to go into those systems.
Okay. Right, and we had a question come in from the audience specifically for you on this. Do you have patch cables and trunk cables and so on within your resources?
Yes, we do. Basically, our SAN infrastructure is a fibre infrastructure. So we have numerous panels linking various different areas of the racks to the storage, and patches from one rack to another in different areas of the data centres. And we have upwards of 10,000 patch cables, which just for fibre, which are all labelled uniquely, and we put all that information into DC Track.
Okay, great. So, as you had mentioned, your plans for the next 12 to 18 months and, getting more into the problem-solving aspects, that's reaching pretty, more broadly across your organization. How do you gain support from, not just your own people who work for you and, come to you for their performance reviews and depend on you for their raise, but the people that are kind of outside of your domain? Can you share with us a little bit about how you have or haven't, kind of gotten more organizational support for this project? Because it clearly is going deeper into the organization as you mature.
Yeah, my team's a small team of 5 people who get the information into DC Track, but we have an IT operation which look after the other tools that we use for change management, network management, etc. They're all come under a central management, which is IT operations, and that's for about 1,000 people in total. And that comes, the management and that are fully behind DC Track as one of the tools that we're moving forward with. So it's really by governance, really. You will use this tool or help to develop it.
All right. So as you you know, on the phone today, we have a lot of people who are you know, probably considering adopting a DCIM solution, or maybe have a package now, but you know, maybe they're not where they want to be with it. You know, based on your experience, can you outline for us some, you know, kind of some top pieces of advice that you would give, you know, to a colleague, people on the phone today about, you know, how to go about this? It's clearly a journey, not a, you know, a one-time, you know, effort. It's something that's ongoing. But if you could talk to us a little bit about, you know, advice that you would give others to achieve, you know, to increase their chances of success.
Well, firstly, is planning what you want to get out of it, what you want to put into it, and what you want to get out of it. But then the most important thing is the accuracy, because if your information isn't accurate, you're nowhere really. So I would say the very most important thing is make sure you get the right data and the accurate data in the right places.
Okay. Yeah, and is there anything specifically for the accuracy? Because, you know, you mentioned that you have a team of 5 people. You know, other implementations you may have, you know, there could be many people interacting with the system. But, you know, how do you motivate people to keep everything accurate, and how do you check and make sure? Because, you know, it's like, yeah, the database that goes along with this is, you know, kind of a living, breathing thing, and if one thing goes wrong, maybe you lose the trust in that system. So how do you ensure that it's accurate and get everybody on the same page with recognizing that importance of the accuracy of the data?
There's some automation tools that are outside of our control, which look at the devices across the network, and if there are mismatches, it will come up in a report saying that, you know, for instance, when we do look at the automation, it's an SMS message goes out to update a file or a database, and then checks for anomalies against the DC Track database. So if we're seeing lots of anomalies, it's made this causing us more and more work. So we're just very, very vigilant in making sure we get the data accurate. But we have got that backup of the automation tools telling us when we've got something slightly wrong.
Okay. All right. So we have an audience question that came in. How many people had admin rights into the tool?
It's just the 5 people in my department that put the data in.
Okay. And let's see, another question that we had is, what change management, service management software do you use and is interfaced with your DCIM?
We're not interfaced with it at the moment, but the change management tool we use at the moment is a thing called Peregrine. But we're migrating from Peregrine onto something called Assist, which we're implementing and have been for about the last 18 months. It's sort of quite painful for us.
Okay. All right. You know, talking about the painful and integrations, you know, can you talk a little bit about how you've overcome that pain? You know, I know that you work with Raritan and you work with another partner. But, you know, can you walk us through a little bit of how you march through that challenge and get to the other side?
Which sort of pain are you referring to? The pain of getting integrating with other products?
Yes, the integration pain, because that's something that I hear from a lot of others. Like, it's, you know, it's something that sounds great, but when it comes down to the details of doing it, it may be difficult for one reason or another. You know, is that something that you rely on your internal folks to handle, or, you know, is there another, you know, or do you use a partner to help out with that?
We've got in two ways. We've got a partner who are interface between Raritan and ourselves called AIT in the UK, and they helped us with the initial data fill of the of DC tracks and getting all the information from our other sources and helping us get into there. The way we keep things under control with interfacing with other applications and tools is by having standards, so naming standards, what fields mean what, so there's not any sort of conflict or very little conflict.
Okay. All right, and the final question I'm going to ask, and the audience members, we will have a chance to ask Keith more questions at the end of the webinar today, so no worries there. We can still tap into him as a resource. But Keith, my final question to you is there anything that surprised you, in between the time that you knew you needed DCIM and you went through the implementation, and it's an ongoing process. But is there anything that you didn't anticipate or that surprised you that you can share with us today?
I think it's how patient you need to be, and it's not going to happen overnight. And you tend to learn things as you go along. Even though I've been in the business a long time, you do get things from it. But what I'd say is don't do it in a hurry, because we expected to implement it probably a bit quicker than we did.
Okay.
And you'd always come over little things you slip up on.
Okay, so kind of the slow and steady wins the race is probably how you could sum that up then. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, well, Keith, thank you so much for your insights, and please, hang on the line because we have a lot of audience questions coming in. But I'm going to move over to Micah, and Micah is from Comcast, Director of Regional Data Center Engineering. And he's had kind of an interesting, a little bit different reasons for implementing DCIM than British Airways did, and a different type of company, with a very aggressive build out, basically to get media content, closer to end users and to speed up performance. And so they've been really moving at a blistering pace over there. But Micah, I would like to ask you some of the similar questions and just see how this is the same and different from Keith's experience. But the first question I'd like to ask you is, how did you know you needed a DCIM solution, and what was your tipping point when you realized that you needed more than what you had in place at the moment?
Well, Jennifer, much like when I jump out of an airplane, it's not so much how I know when to pull the ripcord, it's basically when I know, and that's typically the rapidly approaching terra firma. And so my group was voluntold to be prepared to support a 75 megawatt build out across the Comcast enterprise that would add an additional 1,250 cabinets to our existing footprint and support as many as 25,000 additional server assets. So that was the rapidly approaching terra firma, and we realized then that we had to move off of our legacy systems of Excel and Visio and get into a tool, a relational database that could to accommodate the sheer size that our footprint was going to become, and be more of a tool that we could integrate across all of our functional requirements and not be constrained like we were with some of those legacy systems. So that was certainly the when we realized that we had to get very much ingrained with a DCIM solution, and that was the tipping point for us. Prior, we were managing less than 20 sites across the country with maybe 20,000 assets. So but even then, we understood that, we were limping along with, flat files and Visio diagrams, and knew, as the industry kind of started to realize the benefits of DCIM, that we were going to have to move off those systems and into something a lot more powerful. And so when this latest project came down the road, we knew the time was now to start evaluating different DCIM solutions, make a choice, and to begin aggressively rolling it out across our footprint.
Okay, great. So another question I wanted to ask you is, measuring return, because obviously, you're moving quickly with this, but at some point, you probably need to go back and, whether you need to ask for more money or justify the job that you've done. But, when you get to the point of measuring the return on your investment, what metrics will you use? And, kind of related to that, do you look at the financial benefits along with the operational strategic benefits? Because it sounds like this is really critical to this aggressive build-out. But, are you measuring this financially as well?
Well, certainly, and with all data center managers, the mantra is you have to measure it if you want to manage it. And so that is a secondary concern to us getting the tool out, across our footprint. But what we envision, Jennifer, is that we will use the integration of DC Track with our Remedy TTS tool, so we can quantify how long the design and implementation and turnover of these assets takes within our ticketing system. So we have those intervals that we were working off previously, and now, post DC Track integration, we'll be able to compare those times in queue to our previous times and see what kind of measurable efficiencies we have gained by moving off dissimilar tools into a single pane of glass implementation.
Okay, great.
And then second, I guess I do need a bit of a follow-up there as well. So that's simply, the time component from a human resources perspective. Obviously, we're looking forward to leveraging our existing builds at a higher level of efficiency, so to reclaim a bit more of that headroom that we had typically reserved between our nameplate ratings and actual ratings of the assets themselves. So we can monetize that as well, because we've worked hard in establishing a per watt cost for our data center builds, and every little bit of that headroom that I can reclaim, to your earlier point, is additional cabinets I don't have to put down, or additional data centers I don't have to build quite yet. So that stranded capital is an efficiency that we're going to report on as well as a financial benefit to using a powerful tool.
Okay, great. Thank you, Micah. Another question that I want to, it's a little, you can take it where you want to go, but, just in considering your experience with Raritan and, how it's helped you, what do you think that most people don't really understand about DCIM? And I know it means different things to different people, but, overall, if you could characterize, of people that you talk to, because I'm sure that you rub shoulders, being at Comcast and running such a critical operation, you rub shoulders with a lot of people. What's kind of the common misconception and misunderstanding about DCIM?
Well, Jennifer, I think you nailed it, is that it does mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And as you talk with more facility-based groups, their perception of DCIM may be very much akin to a BMS, a building management system that monitors, ad nauseum, their critical facility infrastructure. Then you start talking to more of an operator, and they're looking for a single source of truth document for connectivity and asset management. And then, we're kind of, we work across all of those groups. So our perspective is that, we want to be able to capture environmentals and capacity on our power and cooling systems, then integrate that into our capacity planning and reporting functions, and in the middle work with cable run lists and rack elevations as well in a single tool, so we're not swivel sharing across multiple applications. So I think that's, people will have their own perception of what DCIM tools may be. And, back to Keith's earlier point, it's so important to quantify what's important to you within DCIM, so you can get a solution that is tailored to your needs, and not, if you approach something that's, or select a tool that's deep in connectivity, and you are looking for a lot of heating and or cooling, modeling, and power consumption, you might be disappointed, and and especially after you spend quite a bit of money, and time to implement a DCIM tool. So I think that's the industry overall is trying to get away from DCIM being everything to everyone, and it's starting to distill down into solutions that are more focused on one end of the spectrum around facilities and maybe BMS, and then the other end simply connectivity. And then some of the larger groups, the more well-known implementations, do a bit of that, sometimes through modules, and then other times, just through an overarching, maybe a 10,000-foot solution that does a little bit of everything at a modest level. So I think that is really what they don't understand about DCIM, without going into the wormhole about how much it can cost and how long it can take to implement. But I'm sure we'll get to that with challenges.
Yes. And so the audience questions are pouring in, but I do have one final question for you before we go to the audience questions. You've managed your data centers for many years, taken a very calculated, educated, and measured approach to your DCIM deployment. But is there anything that surprised you during the process, or anything that you just didn't anticipate that you could share with us today?
Well, like Keith at VA, we knew that the implementation and integration was going to be a heavy lift. We had heard that consistently across, a lot of colleagues that, we reached out to for some guidance on this. And even then it was surprising how long it's taking us to get, a lot. We have multiple sites across the enterprise. There's smaller sites, between maybe 1,500 and 3,500 square feet. So we're talking, north of 50 sites that we're integrating in. And so just the time it's taking to get out and do physical audits, to really quantify that data's accuracy before we use the bulk upload tools in a DC track, and then validate that information, and then tying in the hooks between our real-time power monitoring solution and our rack mount PDUs, which fortunately are all Raritan products, and that was certainly one of our criteria that led to our decision, that tight integration between our rack power systems, our overarching power management system, Power IQ and DC Track. Even then, with those efficiencies, like most, it's I don't know if it's a marathon rather than a sprint, but it's certainly a 5 or 10K. So
yep.
it takes a while. So be patient and have realistic expectations. We're a group of about 40, and we've had to assign dedicated resources to these efforts. We were trying the multitasking for a while, and we weren't moving the bar as quickly as we wanted to. So we have had to kind of re-baseline resources and say, okay, you're going to be dedicated to this effort, assign a project manager to keep all of the the tasks and deliverables and milestones organized so we can roll this out in a methodical approach, as across as many as 170 megawatts of critical facilities.
Okay, great. So we have a question from the audience who just wants to know a little bit more about where you're at right now in your implementation. And the question is Comcast using DCIM in all locations or as a test bed at this time?
Not all locations within the regional data centers that I manage. I have peers that run non-customer facing applications within a national data center space, and their footprint is very much like Keith's. It's a couple, 3 or 4 larger data centers, and they use a different tool, and that may be surprising to a lot, because it's Comcast and it's one company. But our mission is dramatically different from what they do in the national data centers. So my team on the regional side really chose to kind of break apart, from that common tool set and use a tool that we felt really resonated with our needs. And then I have, many Comcast brethren who deliver service delivery side that get HBO and, Cinemax to your house. Those sites use a different tool. So Comcast has about 2,200 mission critical sites across the United States. So they're divvied up into those 3 buckets, almost small, medium, and large. And so within this medium that my teams are responsible for, we are consistently using DC Track and Power IQ to manage those systems.
Okay, great, thank you. Keith, I'd like to hear from you a little bit more too, because we do have a lot of audience questions coming in for both of you, and thank you so much for for kind of opening the curtains and sharing your experiences with us. But a question that we had come in from the audience, and I'll let either one of you take this, is does your DCIM manage critical power and cooling as well? And if so, how is this achieved? And any examples you have?
We don't use it to manage the critical power. We've got the information of how all the power gets to each device, right from the source through the UPS and the generator information, etc., right down to the power strip and the power outlet and how that connects. But we don't manage it. The BMS really manages that.
Okay.
But we have got all the information in there.
Okay, very good. Micah, would you like to answer that question as well? That does DCIM manage the critical power and cooling, or is it an integration with the BMS?
No, we do rely more on DC Track for our critical power, and then as a result our cooling capacities within our sites, but it's not integrated into a BMS system. So much like Keith, we take that information that comes back from our outlet metering and then aggregates up to branch circuit monitoring through the Raritan Power Strip and Power IQ and then the DC Track. So we keep a keen eye on and that's through hooks through DC Track over to our network monitoring system if we have any oversubscription, so the DC Track will actually send out the alerts along with Power IQ if we oversubscribe or drop circuits. So that is certainly fundamental to how we're managing our power, and we're also getting our environmentals, temperature, rack inlet and rack exhaust temperatures via these systems as well. And then as I indicated before, we're able to trim the headroom on our systems, keeping an eye on those running loads across all of our circuits and outlets and systems so we can utilize these very expensive components to a higher level comfortably.
Okay. Thank you, Micah.
I can just add to that. We're not using, British Airways aren't using Power IQ at the moment. We're about to start evaluating it. When we introduced DC Track, we already had a tool which did that, which we're looking to move away from. So we're evaluating Power IQ So we don't, at the moment, have that luxury.
Okay. All right. And so this next question, and both Keith and Micah, I'd like to have you each answer this question. And I promise this did not come from one of the canned questions that Raritan made up. This actually came in from the audience, which I think really speaks to, people are looking for direction. But the question is, can you name a few of the strengths of Raritan that made it your DCIM choice versus the other players in the market? Because there are a number of choices. There's always checklists, and people say they have this and that. But when it came right down to it, what are the things that really mattered and the things that helped you make your decision to go with Raritan? So I think Keith, I'll ask you to answer that question first, and then Micah, I'd like to have you talk about the strengths that and why you chose Raritan as well.
Well, there's three main things really. It's the simplicity and ease of use of DC Track. It's pretty intuitive, and you can understand what's in front of you. The value was a good price. I'm not saying it was cheap. It was a good price. And the main thing you find with Raritan is that they listen to what you want. Rather than saying this is what we've got and this is how you use it, they say, what do you want to be able to do and what are your priorities? And in their user groups, they prioritise the development of the product.
Great, thank you, Keith. And Micah, can you answer that question too, the strengths that made it your DCIM choice?
Absolutely, and it's oddly amusing that Keith in London and me from the deep south of Louisiana could it's certainly no confusing my southern drawl with his Cockney accent, but it's amazing how we really came to the same conclusions 5,000 or 6,000 miles away. That the intuitive use of DC Track, I had mentioned, so easy, an engineer can use it, and that's, we wanted to really ensure our success by selecting a tool that would be adopted and embraced and fully utilized. Some of the solutions were very complicated, and we felt that it would turn into vaporware. Just because it was so complicated that our end user group, that group of 40, would not fully embrace, this tool. Another key consideration for us was that single pane of glass. We didn't want to swivel chair between different applications, so we were, using our criteria we established early, really, liked, the Raritan solution. It seems to really address our key criteria and didn't turn into bloatware in areas that we didn't really need. And that's maybe something important, for those considering a DCIM solution is it can get verbose fast, and you get this hugely complicated solution that you might utilize 25% of the feature set on, and as Keith said as well, there has to be value. There's not an unending stream of money available for all of this. So we looked for value, and we found that with some of our Raritan solutions. And then lastly, we've kidded around about the one neck, either to hug or choke with Raritan, because we were a Raritan shop on our rack mount PDUs. We had some experience with Power IQ, and so there's some efficiencies in having that, and consequently, Comcast is enjoying great support from Raritan because, we're obviously a large company and it's a large-scale deployment, and we're utilizing multiple tools or solutions within their portfolio. So there's nothing wrong with hitting the easy button every now and then, and as long as it works, and that's what we're experiencing so far with Raritan.
Okay, great, very good. So I'm actually going to take one more audience question, because I think this is going to become more and more important in the next couple of years. When we look at the survey work of audits, compliance, regulatory, right now it comes up as, fairly low in the list of importance. I think of capacity planning as being one of the most important reasons for DCIM and asset management. But with increasing regulations, especially among geographic borders, for healthcare, it's only going to become more painful, more time-consuming. And a question that we had from the audience was, did you do physical audits before DCIM? And if so, imagine that they're very costly. How do you do them now? And how has DCIM helped, or has it helped? I'm going to let either one of you, talk about that audit and, that aspect of DCIM. I'll kind of open it up to whoever wants to jump in at this point.
Keith's been first, so I'll start this one real quick. And yes, physical audits were very much a part of our DNA, over the last 15 years that I've been involved with the team, and they can be costly. And we were finding there wasn't a lot of value in that. They're a necessary evil, but the value was diminished because we took that information from the physical audit and then we put it into these flat files in our Excel spreadsheets and documentations, and that turned out to be lost in version control, or updates were made and revisions weren't captured in that single source document, a repository of truth. And so our goal as we integrate DCIM, into the Comcast regional data centers is that we are going out, because the accuracy of the information going into the tool is paramount. So it is almost our last and best effort at really ensuring that everything that we had captured in our Excel sheets is accurate with a physical audit, and that's port by port, and we have as many as 100,000 copper and fiber ports in our larger regional data center offerings, and we'll send a team of embedded and contract resources out for a couple of weeks to do this work, but really ensure that the information is correct. And then we're using the bulk upload feature of DC Track to get that information into the DCIM solution. And so that's how we are, getting to that point of implementation. And then it's our hope that once we have this single source documentation, that we can do spot audits. So we'll go out and maybe select 10% of those ports just to ensure that things are, we're maintaining that data accuracy. So that's our methodology with that physical component, because it's important to understand that a tool will never 100% replace the human aspect of what we do. And so it's, like a hammer, it just helps. It's not an end-all, be-all solution.
Great, and we're running a little bit short on time, but Keith, could you tell us a little bit about the audits at British Airways, maybe before and after DCIM?
Yeah, we've always done audits, and we still continue to do audits. What we don't do, we audit regularly, and that can be monthly, the devices in the data center, just to verify they are where they say they are and where DC Track says they are. What we don't do is we don't audit all the connectivity. Once we've got the connectivity in there, if something changes in the connectivity, we usually get advised by an engineer or requested to add something or take something away. So we just really basically do the audits of the servers and the main devices, and the rest of it we trust.
Thank you both very much for this. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of the insights that you could share with us, but we are limited to an hour at the webinar. But I hope that listening to these two professionals talk about their journeys has kind of made you think of new questions to ask, or confirm some things that you thought about DCIM, and basically just help move you forward in that and recognizing success. So. For the next, the final audience interaction here, I would like to ask you, the audience members, where are you with regard to DCIM implementation? And we will be wrapping up shortly, but just trying to get a feel for, where you're at now and where we'll go. And we're just going to give this a few minutes, or a few seconds, actually. to wrap up. Okay, so I'm going to give about 5 more seconds. Okay, I think we'll cut it off at that point. So the results, it looks like a fairly even split. 23% have already implemented, so that's a decent percentage. That's higher than what IDC sees overall, but it would make sense people calling in to figure out best practices. 32% planning to implement within the next year, and 45% at some point in the future. And so, with that, I'm just going to wrap up with some final. But, Raritan has on the final slides a lot of great insights into this journey and, in help in getting there. So, welcome you to pursue those, as you go. But, just from listening to Micah and Keith today, this is for both of them, what they learned and what kind of surprised them, that it wasn't an overnight quick fix. It's an ongoing journey, and their advice to you is expect the journey to take time. Identify problems to solve, so it can quickly become, you can have a list of 100 different qualities that you want to have, but Raritan and others in the industry that have helped customers through this process have really found that identifying specific problems to solve and kind of that one step at a time, slow and steady wins the race, is really a characteristic of success. In my research and in talking to customers as well, one of the key parts of this is getting it to be a collaborative project between higher-up company leadership and then getting the support that you need from the tools to keep it going. And finally, it's very important to work with an open solution because, like anything, the data center and the tools within it are constantly evolving and growing. And so, as you look towards, getting more mature with DCIM, possibly integrating it with ITSM, your service desk, and in working towards possibly even like IT as a service, it becomes very important to have the information that comes in and out and the flow of that information, and important to choose a solution that is open, such as Raritan. And so with that, I am going to hand it back over to James Serwinski to talk about, just to wrap it up. James?
Okay. Thank you, Keith, Micah, and Jennifer, and thanks to all of you. We hope you have found this webinar educational and helpful. We have posted the slides from today's session and other educational materials. You can download them by pressing the icon on the bottom of your screen. For those of you who would like to try DCIM, you can get a free DCIM test drive right from your computer by clicking the link on your screen. And talking about free, I'd like to announce the winner of today's raffle for the Google Chromebook. And the winner is Glenn Cameron from University of Utah. We'll contact you after the webinar to deliver it to you. On behalf of all of us, thank you for joining us today.